The moment I saw the white powder floating in my soup, I froze. My own son stood there smiling, waiting for me to take the first bite. I didn't know whether to scream or pretend, because one wrong move, and I might not live to tell what really happened next. I stared at the bowl of soup in front of me, steam curling into the air like little ghosts. It smelled delicious, rich, spicy, the way my son Daniel knew I liked it. But as I lifted the spoon, my hand froze. The reflection in the metal spoon wasn't just my wrinkled face, it was fear. A faint shimmer of white powder floated near the surface of the soup. My heart started to pound. I looked up at Daniel. He was watching me too closely, his lips pressed into a tight smile. "Eat, Mom," he said softly. "You've been so weak lately. You need strength." That was the moment I knew. My own son wanted me dead. I slowly lowered the spoon, pretending to cough. My mind was racing. Was it poison? Was I imagining it? No. The way he stood there, waiting, eyes flickering between the bowl and my face, it was too deliberate. I forced a shaky smile and said, "You're right, dear. Let me just get some bread to go with it." Then I stood up, legs trembling, and carried the bowl toward the kitchen. But instead of eating, I poured the soup down the drain. When I turned back, Daniel was standing by the door, staring at me with a look I had never seen before, cold, sharp, hateful. And that was when I realized, this was no mistake. My son truly wanted to kill me. Just 2 months earlier, if someone had told me Daniel would ever hurt me, I would have laughed. He was my only child, the one I raised alone after his father died in an accident. I had worked 2 jobs just to make sure he never went hungry. When his friends mocked him for wearing second-hand shoes, I promised him that one day, life would change, and it did. After years of saving, I started a small catering business. People loved my food, my jollof rice, my soups, my sweet buns. Soon, orders began coming from everywhere. By the time Daniel was 28, we owned 2 houses and several pieces of land. I thought we had made it together, mother and son, against the world. But money changes people. It started small. Daniel began avoiding me, staying out late, and talking about how he was tired of waiting for his own success. He'd say things like, "Mom, you should put the properties in my name. You're getting old anyway." I would laugh it off, but his tone always had a sharpness to it that cut deep. Then came the lies. He'd tell people he built the business, not me. That I was just the old cook who helped him start. The first time I heard him say that, it broke something in me. But still I loved him. A mother's heart is stubborn. I told myself he was just going through a phase. But the day I fainted while working and he didn't even call to check on me, I began to feel something strange, a cold distance growing between us. Still, I forgave him. Then one evening, Daniel came home with a woman named Linda. She was beautiful, polished, confident, and always dressed in designer clothes. She smiled sweetly, but her eyes were sharp. She called me Mom, the first day we met, but her voice carried a tone that said she didn't mean it. At first, I tried to welcome her. But after she moved in, things started disappearing. My jewelry, some important documents. When I asked Daniel about it, he got angry. "Why are you accusing Linda?" he yelled. "You think everyone's out to steal from you? Maybe you're just forgetting things. You're old, Mom." That night, I cried. Not because of the words, but because of the way he said them, without love. A few weeks later, I overheard them arguing in their room. Linda's voice was sharp. "We can't wait forever. You said once she's gone, the house and everything will be ours. Do something." My heart nearly stopped. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from gasping. I didn't want to believe it. But that was the first time I heard it, their plan. After that night, I began watching carefully. They started acting overly kind, bringing me food, asking me to rest, saying they'd handle the kitchen. But I noticed something. Every time they cooked, they insisted I eat alone. One morning, when Daniel served me tea, I caught a faint bitter smell. I poured it down the sink when he wasn't looking, and sure enough, there were strange crystals at the bottom of the cup. My hands shook as I cleaned it out. It was clear now. They weren't waiting for me to die naturally. They wanted to speed it up. But I couldn't show fear. So I pretended. I acted weaker every day, coughing more, moving slowly. I wanted them to think their plan was working. And then tonight came the soup. The one that almost ended my life. I didn't confront him right away. I needed proof, real proof that no one could deny. So while he was at work the next day, I went to his room. I searched through his drawers, and what I found made my knees buckle. There was a small brown bottle labeled pesticide, not for human use. My own son had brought poison into my house. As I stood there, holding the bottle with trembling hands, I heard the front door creak open. Daniel was home early. Panic shot through me. I quickly slipped the bottle into my apron pocket and pretended to be cleaning his room. He looked at me strangely. "What are you doing here?" I forced a smile. "Just tidying up, dear. You know I can't stand dust." He shrugged and walked past me, but I could feel his eyes on my back. Watching. Waiting. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every creak in the floor made my heart race. I knew I had to act fast. Not just to save myself, but to stop him before he did something even worse. So I made a plan. The next morning, I called our family doctor and told him everything. He was shocked but agreed to help. Together, we arranged for a small lab test. I told Daniel I'd be getting a checkup because I'd been feeling weak. When I accidentally brought the poison soup sample along, we had it tested. The results confirmed what I already knew: poison. Rat poison. I cried as I held the report. It was true. My own flesh and blood had tried to end my life. But the hardest part was still to come, pretending I didn't know. When Daniel came home that evening, smiling like a wolf in sheep's clothing, I sat at the dining table and smiled back. "Daniel," I said softly, "tomorrow, I want us to eat together. Just you and me. Like old times." His eyes flickered with surprise. Then he grinned. "Of course, Mom." But what he didn't know was, I had already told the police. The next night, I cooked the meal myself. As we sat together, I watched him lift his spoon, pretending to enjoy my cooking. I smiled gently and said, "You know, Daniel, sometimes what you give others comes back to you." He looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, the front door burst open. 2 officers stepped in. "Daniel O'Connor," one of them said. "You are under arrest." He froze, spoon halfway to his mouth, eyes wide in horror. And that was the moment he realized, I had survived, I had exposed him, and he was about to lose everything. The next few minutes felt like a nightmare that had suddenly come to life. Daniel's face turned pale as the police officers cuffed his hands. He stammered, Mom, what's happening? Why are they arresting me?" I couldn't bring myself to look him in the eyes. My lips trembled, but I said firmly, "You know exactly why, Daniel. You tried to poison me." His expression twisted into something between shock and rage. "Poison you? What are you talking about? I'd never." "Enough," one of the officers said. "We found evidence in your room. A bottle labeled pesticide, and the toxicology report from your mother's food sample. You have the right to remain silent." The whole house fell silent, except for Daniel's frantic shouting. "This is a setup. She's lying. My own mother's lying to destroy me." But I couldn't hear it anymore. I walked away as the officers led him outside. Through the window, I watched my son, my only son, being pushed into the back of the police car, his eyes wild with disbelief and betrayal. And for a brief second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. When the car drove off, I sat down at the dining table, staring at the untouched bowls of food. One was his. One was mine. And for a moment, I thought about how everything had changed. The boy who once held my hand at the market, who used to fall asleep in my arms when storms scared him, had turned into a man who wanted me dead for money. I cried. Not loud but deep. The kind of cry that shakes you from the inside out. The neighbors must have heard the commotion, because soon Mrs. Harris, my friend from across the street, came knocking. "Martha, what happened?" I saw the police. I wiped my tears quickly and opened the door. It's Daniel. He's been arrested." Her hand flew to her chest. "Oh dear Lord. What for?" I hesitated. Saying it out loud made it too real. "He tried to poison me." She gasped. "No. Not Daniel. He's such a nice young man." I shook my head. He was. but money changed him. Mrs. Harris hugged me tight. You're lucky to be alive, Martha. God must have been watching you. I nodded weakly, though deep inside I wondered, if God was watching me, why did he let my son become this? The next day, I had to go to the police station to sign some papers. Daniel sat behind the glass wall, his eyes red. When he saw me, he slammed his fist against the table. Why are you doing this, Mom? Do you really think I'd kill you? I looked at him calmly. You didn't think I'd find out? He shook his head, his voice trembling. It wasn't me. Linda made me do it. She said you'd never give us anything. She said the only way we could start our own life was if. He broke off, crying into his hands. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. So you listened to her instead of me? Your own mother? He looked up slowly. I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted everything you had. I thought I deserved it. I worked for you all these years. I stared at him for a long time. You didn't work for me, Daniel. You worked with me. Everything I did was for you. Every meal I cooked, every hour I worked, every sleepless night, it was all for you. But you let greed blind you. He turned away, unable to meet my eyes. The officer tapped my shoulder gently. Ma'am, your time is up. As I stood to leave, Daniel said something that made my blood run cold. Linda's not done, he whispered. You think you're safe now, but she'll come for you. I froze. What do you mean? I asked sharply, but the officer had already opened the door. Daniel's voice followed me out. She said if I got caught, she'd finish what we started. That night I barely slept. Every sound in the house made me jump. I checked every lock twice, closed the windows, and kept my phone beside my pillow. I couldn't shake Daniel's words. She'll come for you. Linda hadn't been around since the arrest. The police said they were looking for her, but she'd vanished. No phone calls, no visits, no trace. The next morning, I tried to distract myself by going to my restaurant. My workers were shocked when they saw me. News of Daniel's arrest had spread quickly. Madam, we're so sorry, one of them said softly. You raised him well. This isn't your fault. I forced a smile. Thank you. Let's just focus on work. But even while I stirred a pot of soup, I couldn't stop glancing at the door, expecting Linda to walk in any moment. Then later that afternoon, something strange happened. A delivery man came to the restaurant with a big box wrapped in gold paper. Delivery for Mrs. Martha O'Connor, he said cheerfully. I didn't order anything, I told him. It says it's from your daughter-in-law, he replied. Linda O'Connor. My stomach tightened. I stared at the box. It was beautifully wrapped, with a little white card that read, no hard feelings. Let's start fresh. I didn't touch it. Instead, I told my staff to stay back and called the police. When they arrived, they carefully opened the package. Inside was a cake. A beautiful chocolate cake, with thick frosting and cherries on top. One of the officers frowned. Let's test this before anyone eats it. A few hours later, the results came back. The cake was laced with the same kind of poison found in my soup. I sat down slowly, my legs weak. Linda had tried to finish what Daniel started. And she wasn't giving up yet. That night, I realized, I might have survived my son's betrayal, but the danger wasn't over. Linda was still out there, watching, waiting, planning. And the worst part? She knew exactly where I lived. I locked every door in the house that night, but something told me, this was just the beginning. Because 2 days later, I woke up to find a note slipped under my front door. It said, you ruined everything. Now you'll pay. And beneath it was a photo of me sleeping. That was when I knew Linda was already inside my life, and this time, she wasn't just after my money. She was after me. The photo of me sleeping lay on the table, trembling in my hands. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it echo through the empty house. I didn't remember hearing anyone come in. I didn't even remember unlocking a window. But somehow, Linda had been close enough to stand over me, take a photo, and slip it under my door before dawn. That meant only one thing. She had been inside. I picked up my phone and called Officer Reed, the detective handling Daniel's case. My voice shook as I said, she was here. Linda. She left a note and a photo. She's watching me. He told me to stay calm, lock every door, and not touch anything until his team arrived. Within the hour, 2 police cars pulled up in front of my house. I sat on the couch, clutching my shawl, as they searched every corner, under the beds, behind the curtains, even the attic. They didn't find anyone, but they did find something else. Behind my kitchen window, one of the officers found muddy footprints, small ones, like a woman's shoe. And next to it, a torn piece of fabric caught on the edge of the fence. Red silk. Linda's favorite color. She was here, Officer Reed said grimly. And she's dangerous. We'll assign a patrol to keep an eye on the place for a few days. I nodded weakly, but deep down, I knew Linda wouldn't stop just because the police were watching. She was smart, too smart. And she had nothing left to lose. That night, I packed a small bag and went to stay with my old friend Mrs. Harris. Her house was smaller but warm, filled with the smell of cinnamon and old books. "You're safe here," she said softly, handing me a cup of tea. "We'll pray together tonight." For a few days, it felt almost peaceful again. I cooked, I laughed a little, and for the first time since the poisoning, I slept through the night. But peace doesn't last when someone like Linda is still free. On the 5th night, as we were about to go to bed, we heard something outside. The sound of tires screeching, then footsteps on the porch. Mrs. Harris looked at me, her eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" I nodded, grabbing her hand. "Stay behind me." We tiptoed toward the door. I could see a shadow moving just beyond the window, tall, slender, and slow. Then came a whisper through the crack of the door. "Martha." It was Linda's voice. My blood ran cold. She was whispering my name like it was a curse. "You took everything from me," she said softly. "You had him arrested. You think you've won, but you haven't." Mrs. Harris gasped and clutched my arm. I whispered, "Call the police." Before she could move, the front window shattered. A rock flew through, landing right at our feet. Attached to it was a small paper note. "I'm not done yet," I screamed. Mrs. Harris quickly dialed the police while I shut the curtains. My hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped the phone when Officer Reed answered. "She's here. She just broke my friend's window." I cried. The sirens came within minutes, but by the time the officers arrived, Linda was gone again. No car, no footsteps, nothing but silence and shattered glass. "This woman's not giving up," Officer Reed said, his jaw tight. "We'll catch her, but you need to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone." That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat by the window, clutching my rosary, whispering prayers into the darkness. I wanted to believe God was still listening. I wanted to believe that somewhere inside, Daniel regretted everything. But as I watched the police lights fade into the distance, I realized something. I couldn't keep hiding. Linda had already shown me what she was capable of. The only way to end this was to stop her myself. And so, I decided to fight back. The next morning, I went back to my house, despite the police's warning. I cleaned the mess, fixed the broken glass, and set up cameras, 4 of them all hidden. One in the kitchen, one by the door, one near my bedroom, and one facing the back fence. I wanted proof, not just fear. I also placed a recording device under the table, just in case she came back while I wasn't home. For days, nothing happened. No notes, no shadows, no strange sounds. I almost started to believe it was over. But on the 7th day, when I checked the camera footage, my hands began to shake again. There she was, Linda, walking around my living room at 2:17 a.m., barefoot, holding a knife. Her face was calm, almost peaceful, as she stood by my photo on the wall and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then she walked toward my bedroom and smiled at the camera before leaving. That smile froze my blood. I took the footage straight to Officer Reed the next morning. "You have to catch her," I said. "She's getting bolder." He nodded. "This is enough evidence to issue a warrant for her arrest. We'll find her." But that night she found me first. When I got home, I noticed the door was slightly open. My breath caught. I stepped inside slowly, every creak of the floor sounding like thunder. The air smelled faintly of perfume. The same perfume Linda used to wear. And then I saw it. On my bed, lying neatly on the blanket, was a white envelope. My name was written on it in bold red ink. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single photo, of Daniel, sitting in the police station, with the words written across it in red. If you don't drop the charges, he dies. My knees went weak. She was threatening him now. I sat on the floor sobbing. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't let her hurt my son. Even after everything he'd done. He was still my child. But I also couldn't let her win. So I made a decision that would change everything. I called Officer Reed and said, "Tell Daniel to meet me tomorrow at the old restaurant. I'll talk to him. But I want you to set a trap for Linda." The plan was simple. I'd meet Daniel publicly, where Linda would surely try to appear. The police would be waiting nearby, hidden, ready to arrest her the moment she showed up. But things didn't go as planned. When I arrived at the restaurant the next day, Daniel was already there, sitting nervously by the window. He looked thinner, older, broken. "Mom," he said, tears in his eyes, "I didn't know it would get this bad." Before I could reply, the sound of a door creaking echoed through the empty building. Then a familiar voice cut through the air. "Well, isn't this touching?" We both turned. Linda stood at the entrance, holding a gun. And that was the moment everything spun out of control. Linda's hand was steady, the gun aimed right at me. Her eyes gleamed with hatred. "You couldn't just let things be, could you, Martha? You had to ruin everything." Daniel jumped to his feet. "Linda, please. Don't do this. Put the gun down." She laughed, a sharp, cold sound that made my skin crawl. You're the reason we're in this mess. You were supposed to make it look like an accident. But you failed, Daniel. And now your mother wants both of us in jail." Daniel shook his head, his voice trembling. "We can fix this. We can explain." "Explain," she snapped, stepping closer. "Explain how you and I tried to poison your saint of a mother? There's no fixing that." I stood very still, my mind racing. I could see movement through the glass. The police, waiting outside, trying to find the right moment to enter. But one wrong move, and Linda would pull the trigger. "Linda," I said softly, "you don't have to do this. You can still walk away." She sneered. "Walk away? After everything? You took Daniel from me. You made me a criminal." "You made yourself one," I replied. Her hand trembled slightly. "That was my chance." I took a slow step forward. "You know, Linda, I once believed you could change. I even prayed for you. But you chose this path. You thought you could destroy me. You thought I was weak. But look at me. I'm still standing." Her jaw tightened. "Not for long." She raised the gun. "No." Daniel shouted, lunging toward her. The gun fired. A deafening sound that echoed through the restaurant. I screamed as Linda stumbled backward, eyes wide, clutching her shoulder. The gun fell from her hand and slid across the floor. Daniel looked at me, his face pale. "Mom, are you okay?" Before I could answer, police officers burst through the door shouting, "Drop your weapon." They pinned Linda down as she screamed and kicked. "It was supposed to be mine," she cried. "All of it. The house, the business, everything." But it was over. The officers dragged her away, and the restaurant fell silent except for the sound of my shaky breathing. I turned to Daniel. He was crying, silent, broken sobs. "Mom," he whispered, "I didn't mean for any of this. I thought I could handle her. I thought I was in control. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." I looked at him for a long moment. My heart ached, not just from fear, but from years of love that refused to die. "Daniel," I said quietly, "forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You have to live with what you've done. But I will always be your mother." He nodded slowly, tears streaming down his face. "I'll accept whatever comes. I just want you to know I'm sorry." Officer Reed stepped forward gently. "Mrs. O'Connor, it's over. She'll be charged with attempted murder. Your son's case will be reviewed, considering his cooperation." I nodded, feeling the weight lift from my chest. For the first time in months, I could breathe again. As the officers led them both away, I looked around the restaurant, the place that had once symbolized my dreams. It had seen my rise, my betrayal, and now my survival. I walked to the window, sunlight streaming in, and whispered to myself, "They tried to poison me for my own success. But sometimes, poison only makes you stronger." Months later, the trial ended. Linda was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Daniel received a lighter sentence, thanks to his confession. It wasn't easy watching him led away again, but I visited him every week. Slowly, I saw the guilt in his eyes soften into something else. Understanding. He started reading, working, changing. Maybe prison would break him. Or maybe it would save him. As for me, I rebuilt everything. My restaurant reopened, bigger than ever. I hired young people who had no families, and I treated them like my own. The news called me, the mother who survived, but I didn't see myself as a hero, just a woman who refused to die quietly. One evening, as I locked up after work, I stood outside under the pink sunset. The world felt peaceful again. And I whispered to the wind. Evil can come from anywhere, even from those we love most. But love, real love, will always be stronger than hate. Then I turned off the lights, walked home, and smiled to myself. Because I had not only survived, I had won. If this story broke your heart or opened your eyes, tell me what you would have done if you were in my place. Would you forgive a child who tried to destroy you? Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts and subscribe, because more real-life stories like this are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one.